today on the line we have a household name that stretches beyond the boxing world. Son of all-time great, trying to make his own footprint in the boxing world, George the Fighting Monk Foreman. Thanks for joining us today, champ. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be with you guys online today.
Well, George, the first thing that struck me when I started reading and learning more about your boxing career was your nickname, the Fighting Monk. Can you tell us who coined that or where that might have come from?
The Fighting Monk is funny. My nickname is Monk. And where that came from is my father. My father, when he was a kid, they called him Monkey. And sometimes they would call him Monk for short, but primarily Monkey. Then when I was born, he nicknamed me Monkey as well. And my aunt said, you know what? We can't have two monkeys in one household. And so she started calling me Monk. So that's always kind of been, my second name for people who are close to me. And I used it, when I started fighting. I was, first on Twitter as George Foreman III, and then I opened my big mouth on Facebook and said, guys, tell me, do you think that's a good name? I'm going to have a vote. And whoever suggests a good name and, everybody vote on which one they think's the best, I'm going to use it. Me being a man of my word, Fighting Monk was the one that won, so I used it. Simple as that. And it's not my style to actually have, such a kind of a, it's hokey, but it's fun type of nickname. I'm pretty mundane, but I told my fans that that's what I was going to do, my fans and my friends, so I did it.
Well, that's definitely interesting. Like how you had the fans have some input on that, and it also relates to the legacy of your father. Now, growing up a Foreman, was boxing really part of your life as you were really young?
Growing up in the Foreman household, boxing could not be part of your life. I was born in 1983. By then, my dad was 383 pounds. He was a big guy. Didn't make a fist. Didn't really talk boxing. Didn't barely watch TV. Then by around 86 or 87, he had put everything he had into the George Foreman Youth and Community Center, which had a large boxing element. And he started that in 83, just so kids could come hang out. And he had put all his money into it and said, if I don't get behind this thing financially, it's going to have to close, or I'm going to go bankrupt, one of the two. So that's when boxing came into the picture again. I was young, maybe 6 or 7. Since then, and since that day, whenever I wasn't in school, we were taught it wasn't about, going to school and coming on break, taking a break so you can play video games. You have to help, you have to participate in the harvest. You come home to help your family's harvest the crops. That's what breaks are for. So during my breaks, our crops were in the gym, and I was always, right up on my father's side, following him in the Jeep, even though I could barely see over the steering wheel during his road work, counting his rounds, helping him stretch, because he didn't want other people touching him. And I always participated in training camps. Didn't make a fist or hit a bag myself until I was in my mid-20s, to be honest, though.
Well, that's interesting. So boxing wasn't a part of your life when you were really young until he got involved in the community center. And you probably remember his decision to end his 10-year retirement and go back in the professional ranks quite well. How did you and your family feel about that?
When it's someone you love, no one ever feels good about your father getting in the ring. And everyone was telling him, no, George, you're too old, you're too slow, you're too fat, don't do it, why do it, etc. But not one of those people were saying, well, here's $10, George, And if one of those people would have done so, he could have made a business out of that, but he didn't. He had to fight, and that's what he knew how to do. So it was kind of a double-edged sword in that that respect. And you never get used to watching TV and seeing your father get hit. But you get used to finding out that he comes home, he's swollen, he's, sore, and after 2 or 3 days, he's the same old dad again. So it was good and it was bad, But you knew, when he was happy and he had achieved the things he wanted, things were always good around the house. So.
Something else unique about the family you grew up in is that the name Foreman, your father's done an amazing job of turning the name Foreman into a well-marketed brand. How did that affect your life as you were growing up?
Anything he does, he eats, sleeps, and breathes it. And so he developed his salesmanship by, in the late 70s, preaching on street corners, trying to get people to stop either on the way from work or on the way to work to get the bus to stop and maybe even be late to work to listen to the Bible. Who wants to do that, especially when they're messing up their paycheck to do it? And and he found out that he had to sell himself to get people to stop and listen to him. So he didn't want to talk any George Foreman stuff, but eventually he realized that's what's going to make him stop. And if I can make him stop, maybe I can tell him about God, Jesus Christ, etc. So then when he came back, fighting, he had no interest in being a spokesperson or a salesman or anything like that. But here and there, he got people. People will call him and say, "George, you want to be on a Nike commercial?" And his first answer was actually no. But some close friends of his told him, "George, why not do it? You work so hard, et cetera, et cetera." And when he got on camera, he just did the same thing he did on the street corner, trying to get people to listen to the Bible, and it translated. So, and the fun part for us, and I'll just kind of dumb it down, was when we got to do a Doritos commercial. You got free food and free clothes and a little check here and there, and Oscar Mayer Wiener commercials. That was always fun. As kids, that's all we thought about. We didn't realize, what he was doing, creating a brand and living a brand. When the cameras are off, he went home. He was that same guy. He was actually better than what you would see on TV. But as we got older, we realized that's what it was all about. If you're going to be that guy on TV, you better be that guy times two when you're at home, if you're going to have a brand that can have 20 years of marketability.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I read that you were working with your dad's businesses, going to school, when you actually decided you wanted to start working out at a boxing gym. Is that correct?
That's correct. I was at Pepperdine University for 2.5 years, and I went in the boxing gym one day and ran out when I saw pictures of my dad everywhere. He didn't want us talking about boxing unless we had a college degree. Halfway, right from my last semester at Pepperdine, I actually started working for him. I was, a few months shy of 21, and I spent, 7 years doing nothing but, whatever he needed me to do. I just, I was, whether it was a business contract or his flight arrangements, everything in the middle, I was his guy. And somewhere along the line, it was right after I graduated, I transferred to Rice University. My brothers are teasing me because they said, you're a young preppy. You were never a real athlete. And so I told them, I said, I got them on a conference call, all the Georges. And I said, look, if I have one amateur boxing match, will you guys give me my respect? They had almost got me to walk on the Rice football team, but I didn't have time. And they said, yeah, you got it, man. We'll be there and everything. And I was 280 pounds at the time. So it was, I'm going to lose some weight, have a three-round, 1 minute round, fight. And that's going to be it. Got in the gym, and, what do you know? Big surprise. I love it, just like my father did. And after a few months, my father got in and, was telling me, I couldn't find people to fight me. Couldn't find amateurs to fight me at all. And he said, look, why don't you just have a pro fight if you can't get guys to fight you? And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And he's like, if you're really going to fight, you got to let me train you. And that's when my boxing career really started as far as training is concerned. And he trained me, and, about 3 years ago in June, I had my first fight. And that's kind of how it all developed. I never thought I was going to be a boxer. I always thought it would be cool. Everyone likes the idea. I didn't know anything about the hard work it took and all that until just a few years ago.
Well, what is it like carrying such a famous name and having such a famous trainer in your, going by the same name and you're in that corner? Does that give you any added pressure? It sounds like there is a little bit of a pressure just amongst your brothers in the household. What do you feel?
What I feel when it comes to pressure is, it's interesting. No matter what I've done, and I'm used to it since I was in second grade, because, having a father who's a good preacher, a good fighter, a good TV personality, a good author, a good cook, salesman, just all these different hats he wears. Whatever he does, he's usually considered pretty good at it. And so whether it was a spelling bee, whether it was field day, whether it was who got the best grade on the test, there was always that pressure to see, what did George get, or how's George going to do, no matter what. I don't know where that comes from. It's kind of weird, but that's what I grew up with. In boxing, I don't shy away from it because you know what? This is the pressure sport. To me, it's the grandfather of chess. And if you don't want to deal with pressure, you don't need to be in the sport anyway. And the type of pressure I deal with on a day-to-day level is nothing compared to the type of pressure that I'll have to deal with when I fight on the big stage for the title or what have you.
Well, for George, from the outside, it seems like your pro career, despite a lack of amateur background, has gone perfectly. Winning your first 15 fights, 14 of them by knockouts. But you seem to be, well, maybe you or maybe your brothers might be your toughest critics. How would you assess your career up to this point?
Well, the way I would assess my career at this point is that I've learned a lot. What I've learned hasn't made it into the ring yet. That's going to take some more time. I fought guys that, whether I beat them in 2 rounds or not, they've been fighting since they were in the ring in 1991. And that's what it's going to take, having that type of experience for me to be the type of fighter that I'd like to be. And the most important thing, though, is I've been able to have these fights, more importantly, all the sparring, heavy sparring, sparring guys that are harder than the guys I fight. And I'm still healthy. I can still think. I can still talk. I can still, do what I need to do in the business world. I can still do math. I'm studying for the GMAT right now. So all is well, when it comes to how I feel about my career. I'll never be happy with my technique. I'll never be happy with my execution. That's just the type of guy I am. The only thing that can make me happy is the results. And the results, come with, getting up and having 30 fights and still having a winning record, and fighting for titles and stuff of that nature.
Well, you talk about your results, and when we look at your boxing record, people are going to see that you haven't been taken out past the 6th round so far.
Yeah.
Is there one fight that we could take a look at that you would describe as your most satisfying win or the greatest accomplishment you've had so far?
I'll give you 2 fights. The 2 fights that I considered my 3 fights, to be honest. I fought a guy, and they're all, I consider them big accomplishments for different reasons. I fought a guy named Dale Mitchell. You look on my record. And he was an MMA guy and a great college football player, and was just getting into boxing. But he's actually got a few belts on the MMA side now. He fought me and mopped the floor with me in the first round, and I got myself together and came back and started using my boxing ability, which I wasn't doing at first, and I was able to end the fight by the end of the 2nd round. That was the first time I was what I would consider in deep water, real deep water, because I figured, what in the world I got myself into. Then I fought a guy named Johnson. His last name is Johnson.
James Johnson.
That's the fight I went 6 rounds. And here's a guy, if you watch him before he fought me, any video, if you get a vote in that fight, he's fat, flabby, out of shape, not doing much, but guy with a lot of experience. Well, he shows up to the fight for me, and he's got muscles popping out of his forehead. Obviously, he decided he was going to train. This is a guy that was a hot prospect at some point. I got out there and went 6 rounds, something I didn't expect to do or didn't know I could do. To go 6 rounds and win a decision was better for me to get a knockout, and that's still how I feel. That might be my crowning accomplishment. And the 3rd fight that I think is that I'll mention is I fought a guy. I think it was my 14th fight in Tyler, Texas, and he came out. He hit every time I knocked him down, he hit the ground like a sack of potatoes. And I think when he'd hit the ground so hard, he'd wake back up. And his corner, his mother, everybody's there screaming, "You better get up, get up!" And I realized this guy didn't come here to lose. And what I was excited about in that fight was that I finally felt like I had my style. I didn't feel like I was nervous. I was just taking it as it came, and I was getting into my style, which is kind of letting the fight come to me and throwing hard, explosive punches. Not so nervous, and I felt like maybe 40% of what I can do made it into the ring. That was, those are the 3 I would really talk about.
Well, as you described those 3 fights, it seems like you're really making a lot of progress, even though you're winning each one of the fights. In April of 2012, that was your last fight, and we haven't seen anything out of you since. Is there something that's causing the inactivity?
Yeah, nothing more than me deciding that I have goals that do that stretch beyond boxing. From 2006, I was supposed to have gone straight into business school because at that point I had about 4 years experience in the business world, and I could have applied, and I kept putting it off. I was doing really well in business, doing well for myself, and then boxing came into the picture, and I studied, had a tutor and everything to take the GMAT so that I could go to business school, but I would never take the test. And so finally I said, you know what, I need to take some time off and commit myself to going to school because boxing or not, that's something I told myself I was going to do. I told my father I was going to do it. I told my mother I was going to do it. And if I'm going to tell kids and young people that they need to do it, I need to put my money where my mouth is. So the inactivity was all about me stopping and refocusing my life to the things that I can do, for the next 40 years. Boxing is, a 5 to 10 year thing. So now I've gotten as far as I need to go with my studying. I'll put in applications before the year's end, and that's where I'm starting to ramp up and, get in shape because I might fight again. And the last thing I would say to that is I also hated the idea of being on TV or even talking to the press because I shied away from the press for the past 3 years without having a business, a charity, or a product or something that can benefit from the type of exposure that I'll have. And I didn't have that back in February. Now I have those things kind of ready to go. So when I fight, I can kind of be like my father, and people won't just be hearing about me. They can hear about the charities I support, the businesses I'm involved in, etc. And I think that's how you can benefit from being a fighter. It's not about the paycheck anymore.
Yeah, that's excellent. That kind of leads us to where I was going to kind of go next. Is there any particular? You're very obviously well educated, and you got bigger plans going on. Is there any projects you're working on outside the ring other than getting your teammates up and getting into business school?
Yeah, I have a few projects that you'll hear about in. Excuse me 1 second. I have a few projects you'll hear about in probably 4 to 6 weeks. I can't talk about them now, but I'll put it this way: I never get into businesses that I don't know and understand. So you can be sure that it'll have an application of what who I am as a fighter and what I understand as being a boxer, what I understand about health and fitness from growing up in a family whose whole bread and butter was about understanding health and fitness, if you will. And the last thing is charity, giving back. It's something I really believe in, and what bothers me is that people my age, between 20 and about 30, think we can't do anything until we start getting our bigger paychecks and we're settled into our career, and our accountant tells us we need to set aside, X amount, for our taxes to charity. But no, we can do something right now. And so I can guarantee you what you'll hear about in the next 4 to 6 weeks will have something to do with one of those 3 areas, and then eventually all of those 3 areas.
Well, George, you definitely sound like you've got your priorities straight in life, and you want to. While your father built the Foreman name into a brand, you have some of your own goals. What would you, at the end of the day, what do you want the legacy of George, the Fighting Monk Foreman, to be?
I want my legacy to, and it's something that's easy to say, but you have to get out there and work to make it happen. I want my legacy to be that somebody put their money where their mouth is. And when I say money, the currency I'm talking about is their time, commitment, etc., not just cash. It's easy to put up cash. And, I put my money where my mouth is when it comes to giving back to causes that are bigger than myself, bigger than the people that I love. That's what I want my legacy to be about, to be honest with you.
Well, thanks for that.
Anything else, guys like Bill Gates and everybody, they can outshine me, but who can be the best person and give back?
Well, you definitely have a refreshing perspective on life, your priorities and orders, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We're definitely looking forward to your venture that you can announce in 4 to 6 weeks. We're definitely looking forward to seeing when you might be able to enter back in the ring again, and just we're looking forward to big things from you in all aspects of your life.
Great. Had a great time talking to you guys. Pick up the phone and call me if ever you need me for anything. Thanks a lot.